Whether you like sparkly things or just like to watch the world burn, this video is for you. We're going to be making some explosive content as I show you a stupidly simple way to create fireworks in GDevelop5. And did I mention you won't need sprites? Because, well, you won't. So pull up your seat, grab a coffee, and maybe a fire extinguisher. This is going to be a blast. Alright, I'm going to break this down for you in 3 stages. A quick and easy opening act, adding in some spice, and a grand finale. Now each of these will build on the previous stage, so stick around until the end to get the best bang for your buck. If you don't already have GDevelop, go to the website and get it for free. You don't even have to download it, you can launch it directly in your browser. However, I'll be using the desktop version. Once you're in GDevelop, create a new game, and in this case I'm going to do a desktop version, and create the project. Once you have your game scene open, make sure you have your layers selected, and go to the color. Set that to black or a dark navy or something to look like a nighttime sky. Then all we're going to work with from our objects panel is 3 particle emitters. So add particle emitters by going to add new object, scroll down, particles emitter, and select either the red explosion or blue explosion. It doesn't matter. Add that in. Double click on your emitter. We're actually going to replace the standard image. It provides you with an image that is transparent on the edges, but fireworks are bright and sharp at the edges. Select the fill bucket and right click to erase that. And we're going to resize this to 64 by 64 and resize. Now I just want you to drag a white circle from the top left to the bottom right. And fill, and save. Now the only item we need to change in this interface is the number of particles in the tank, because for some reason that seems to be the only item that we cannot change over in the events. So set this first particle emitter to 500 particles in the tank, and apply. Then I want you to right click and duplicate, open your second particles emitter and set the number of particles in the tank to 2000. Finally, duplicate that one and set the third particles emitter number of particles in tank to 3000. Apply. In the events, at the beginning of the scene, I want you to start a timer and name it Firework Timer. You can do this by selecting the actions, search Timer, and select Start or Reset a Scene Timer, and give it this name or something similar that makes sense to you, and hit OK. Then, create a new event line by selecting Add, New Event Below, or Shift A. I gave this event line a comment called Initiate Launch. You can do the same. Under Conditions, add if the timer, Firework Timer, is greater than or equal to 1 second. You can do this under the conditions by searching for Value of a Scene Timer, select your timer's name, if the sign of the test is greater than or equal to, and set 1 second. This will allow the scene to automatically launch a firework every 1 second. We can change that later if we like. Next, I want you to add a sub-event. You can give this a comment called Spiral Shot or something like that. This will have no conditions, and I want you to start or reset that same timer. You can copy and paste this from the beginning of the scene up top. After you've start or reset that timer, I want you to create the object, the particles emitter upward spiral. You can do this by selecting your actions, selecting the particle emitter, create an object, and then we're going to put that somewhere in the middle of the scene. So I want you to set this to scene window width divided by 2, and then add a random in range, negative 200 to 200. And then for the Y position, I want you to set it to scene window height. So this will set it to the bottom of the screen. Now all of these other events here are simply the parameters for the particles emitter. So this is the same thing as opening up your actual particles emitter here and dialing these nodes, but instead we're doing it in the events themselves. That's all that is. First, I want you to ensure that you set the particles emitter additive rendering to no. Second, change the particles start color to white. 255, 255, 255. So you can type that in, or you can select this color box and select the top left area. That's the white. Change the particle's end color to sort of a warm yellow. In this case, I did 255, 1960. Change the gravity on the y-axis set that to 150. Change the particle start size to 6. Change the particle end size to 1. Change the maximum number of displayed particles, set that to 3000. Change the flow of the emitter to 1000. Change the maximal emission force of particles to 40. Change the minimal emission force of particles to 20. Change the maximum lifetime of particles to 1. Change the angle of the spray cone to 30. So far, that has modified the particle emitter itself as well as its particles. Now what we're going to do is create that at the bottom of the scene, and the idea is that we now want to add movement. So to add movement, we're going to use a tween. So we're going to go into action, select your particles emitter, and search tween object position. Give it a name. I called it spiral tween position. And we're going to tween it to a location at scene window width divided by 2, plus random float and range, -200 to 200, and to y, scene window height divided by 2, minus random and range, 20 to 200. This will place the end result of that launch to somewhere in the middle of the scene, and we need to select an expression for how we want that to travel. Now this could be linear or one of many other options. We're specifically going to choose ease out sign. What this means is it's going to start off really fast and slow down as it reaches its end position, kind of like gravity is slowing it down as it reaches its ascent. And we're going to make this tween occur over 3 seconds. Finally, we want to tween the angle of the particle emitter itself. So select your particles emitter, tween object angle, give it an arbitrary name, and set the angle to 6,480. Now why would we select 6,480? Well, that is 360 degrees 18 times. 360 times 18. Okay, good, public math. And set that duration to 2.5 seconds. Do not destroy the object when the tween finishes. Now, if you've been following along, you should get something like this. So here we have rocket launches from the bottom of the scene. They reach the top and they slow down as they ascend. You can see that the particles are changing from a white to a yellowy color, and you can see that there are 18 rotations per launch. Next, I want you to add an event below by selecting the plus sign in the upper right. I want you to add a for each object event. Now this is not a sub event, so ensure that it's dragged all the way to the far left. Repeat for each instance of, and select your upward spiral particle emitter, the one that we were just working on. Under conditions, add if the tween spiral tween angle on the particle emitter has finished playing. Then we need to add a variable to our object. So go back out to the main scene, double click on your particle emitter, go to variables, and add tween finished as a boolean, and leave that as false. Once you have your variable, I want you to add this event. Under conditions, select your particles emitter, variable value, select the variable tween finished, and check if the value is false. Then under your actions, I want you to change the variable tween finished and set that to true. Then we need to add a scene variable. Go to the upper left, find your scene, click on the 3 dots, edit scene variables, and we're going to add one called Firework Selection. That can be a number, and you can leave it set to 0. You can ignore all those other variables for now. You can also ignore these other items here. This was for debugging. So congratulations if you've made it this far. This is the end of step 1. In step 2, we're going to take what we've already done, and we're going to add a lot of spice to it. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite fireworks are. So moving on into step 2, we need to add fireworks that actually explode at the top of each of those spiral rocket ascents. I want you to find the repeat for each instance of upward spiral, add a sub-event below. In this case, I give it a comment, and it's the name of the firework, Peony. I want you to add these conditions. The number of scene variable firework selection is equal to 0, and add a trigger once. This will ensure that the firework only explodes one time and not one time per act. Over in the actions, these are going to be similarly to before, mostly just adjusting the dials of your particles emitter. But we're going to use a different particles emitter. So first, start or reset the timer, firework timer. Then create the object, and this is just creating our second type of particle emitter. It's the basic burst. So select your particle emitter, create an object. Now create your object at firework upward spiral.x and upward spiral.y. This is going to be the exact location of the previous particle emitter, the upward spiral shot. So once that shot reaches its maximum ascent, you're going to place this particle emitter at that location. Leave it on the base layer. And again, all we're doing here is adjusting the dials of the particle emitter. Set the basic firework burst, activate particles additive rendering to no. Next, we're going to add some random colors. To do this, I want you to go to the left side, find your extensions and click on the plus, and type in color. You'll find random color generator. Add this to your scene. Once you have your random color generator, I want you to change the particle start color of your firework basic burst to random color, create random color. And do the same for the particle's end color, set that to random. Now change the gravity to 0, change the start size to 6, change the end size to random in range 4 to 6, change the maximum number of displayed particles to 1500, change the flow of the firework burst to 10,000, change the maximal emission force to 150, and the minimal emission force to 5. Change the minimum lifetime of the particles to 1.7, and change the maximum lifetime of the particles to 2.3. I want you to change the variable firework selection and assign it to random in range 0 to 0. We'll change that later. Now here's what this looks like. We're getting the upward spiral shot, followed by a colorful burst, and each burst is changing from one color to another. You can see that the particles are fizzling out at slightly different times. This is due to the random numbers that we entered, because real fireworks don't all fizzle out at the exact same time, it's random. Now that we have our basic firework functioning, I want you to go below, and we're going to add a new firework. So add new event, set the new event to check if the number of scene variable firework selection is equal to 1, and under actions, start or reset the firework timer. Below that, I want you to add a repeat event. So under the plus sign, select repeat. This will repeat an item as many times as you specify. In this case, set that to 2. And all you're going to do here, as I said, you're building off of what you did previously. Under your Peony event, select every action. And I want you to copy and paste them into your repeat event here. You can paste them by right-clicking on Add Action and Paste Actions, or Control V. It's going to do exactly what you think. It's going to create 2 peonies at nearly the same location. But what I want you to do to make it different is under the Create Object location, instead of adding it at exactly the spiral X location, let's add a margin of -20 to 20. So add firework upward spiral.x plus random in range -20 to 20. And do the same for the Y value down here. Under the random number selection, set that to random 1 to 1 so we can test this. And here's what this looks like. You get that nice colorful double burst. Not at the exact location, but nearby. I told you, you want to stick around to the end because you're going to get the most bang for your buck using the work that you've already accomplished, with minimal effort moving forward. Next, scroll down, create new event, change the condition to if the number of scene variable firework selection is equal to 2. Under actions, start or reset the timer, firework timer. Now we need to add 2 more variables. So go to your scene variables, click on the 3 dots, edit scene variables, and we're going to add x underscore round circles within and y underscore round circles within. Those are numbers, and you can leave the number value as 0. Then under actions, I want you to change the scene variable x round circles within, set that to scene window width divided by 2 plus random in range -50 to 50. And similarly for the y value, select the scene variable y round circles within, set to scene window height divided by 2 plus random in range -50 to 50. I want you to add a sub-event below. I'm calling this one my outer circle, and I'm giving it a color of red. You can give it whatever color you prefer. Again, I want you to copy all of the actions from your Peony event. Paste your Peony actions into this event for the outer circle. Now let's adjust the dials for that particle emitter. Create the object Firework Basic Burst at the X position Firework Upward Spiral.x and Firework Upward Spiral.y. Nothing has changed there. Ensure additive rendering is set to no. Change the start color to a specific color of your choice. In this case, I picked red, which is 25500. And I want the end color to be the exact same. I don't want this one to change. Ensure gravity is set to 0. Change the start size to 6. Change the end size to a random and range 4 to 6. Change the maximum number of displayed particles to 1500. Change the flow to 10,000. Change the maximal emission force to 150. Change the minimal emission force to 5. Change the minimum lifetime of particles to 1.7. Change the maximum lifetime of particles to 2.3. Now what I want you to do is take this entire sub-event, copy, Control-C, paste that below. This is going to be a middle circle, and I'm giving it a color of blue. As you guessed, it's going to be the exact same thing, except it's going to be blue, and it's going to be a little bit smaller. So set your color for the start and end color, and then change the maximal emission force to 120. That's it. Now copy that entire event, paste below, and I'm giving it a color of white. Again, ensure you change your start and end colors, and then change the maximal emission force to 80. Now this is under the condition of firework selection number 2, so set your random selector to 2 to 2 for testing purposes. Here's what this looks like. Now you can pick whatever color scheme you like. It could be your football team or whatever. Now this brings us to the end of step 2, and you've made it really far. Congratulations on making it this far into the video. So far you've added several types of fireworks, including the launch. Now hang with me just a little bit longer and we're going to add a really special one. So far the fireworks we've added into the game were this type of firework, sort of a basic burst. But what about some of those glittery, sparkly ones? I have something in mind that's going to be something of a hybrid between this sort of horsetail and a weeping willow. Okay, so we're on the home stretch. I want you to add a new event below. This is going to be called Weeping Willow. Add the condition if the number of scene variable firework selection is equal to 3, and again, start or reset the timer, firework timer. Underneath that, I want you to add a repeat event. You can add this by selecting the plus sign and repeat. This will repeat 16 times. There will be no conditions, and I want you to create the object Firework Flare. So this is our third particles emitter. So select that third particles emitter, Firework Flare, create the object at Firework Upward Spiral.x and Upward Spiral.y. So same as before. Then change the particle start color to white and change the particle's end color to sort of a warm yellow. Now we're going to add a new timer here, and I want you to start or reset the timer, time to fall, of Firework Flare. So this is an object timer. To add the object timer, simply go into your actions, select Firework Flare, search timer over here, and it'll be down under timers, start or reset an object timer, and then give it a name. I called it time to fall. Now for this particular firework, I find I get a slight performance boost if I actually adjust some of the parameters inside of the particles emitter itself. So take a quick snapshot of this scene, or pause the video, and match your numbers to these. Note, we are changing the spray cone angle of this to 45 degrees. Below the repeat event, I want you to add a for each object event. Again, click on the plus sign and add for each object, and repeat for each instance of Firework Flare. Now for the condition, we need to add an object variable to Firework Flare. So navigate out to your scene, double click on Firework Flare, click on Variables, add a Boolean variable called false started. And you can leave that set to false. Under your conditions, check to see if that variable is false. Then under actions, I want you to change that variable and set it to true. Next, I want you to rotate the Firework Flare particle emitter towards random in range 0 to 360 at speed 0 degrees per second, which is actually GDevelop's way of saying instant. So navigate to your particle emitter, rotate toward angle, random in range 0 to 360, which as you guessed is a full circle, and angular speed of 0. I want you to add to the Firework Flare a permanent force of angle fireworkflare.angle degrees and a length 100 pixels. To do this, select your Firework Flare, add a force angle, type in firework flare dot. So you start typing angle, and it's a built-in function. So click on angle. Select speed, 100 pixels per second, and select permanent. This means it will continually push your object. Next, we need to add another extension to the scene. So navigate to the left side, click on extensions, enter the word face, and select face forward by Victress Games and the game dev. Once you have the extension in your scene, you need to add it to your firework flare object. So double click on your object, navigate to behaviors, and add behavior, type face. If it's not already selected, add face forward. In your events, I want you to activate the behavior face forward of your firework flare object. Finally, we want to tween the Y position of the firework flare particles emitter, give it a tween identifier called flare Y tween or something like that, and we want it to tween to the Y value of the scene window height, i.e. the bottom of the screen. Select easing in, out, back. What does ease in, out, back mean? Well, thanks for asking. So if you actually follow this curve from right to left, this is what we're working with. It will go slightly up and then drop down. That's why we're picking this function. It will give us a nice, smooth upward and then descent kind of behavior for the firework. Give it a duration of 4 seconds and do not destroy object when the tween finishes. Finally, change the creation radius of firework flare and set that to a random in range 3 to 8. And change the angle of the spray cone to 45 if it's not already set to 45. Remember to set your random number selection up above to 3 of 3, and let's test. Now we're getting this nice sort of falling horsetail weeping willow effect. As you can see, you get columns that descend that are more narrow, and this gives the illusion that they might be further back. You have others that are wider, and this might give the illusion that they're closer to the viewer. Now, this effect is relatively expensive, so if you struggle with performance, feel free to decrease this number from 16 down to a more suitable number. Or if you have a supercomputer, feel free to increase the amount of repetitions. Now, let's put it all together and see what it looks like. Set your random number selection to 0 to 3. Now we're getting combinations of the single peonies, the double peonies, the triple burst, as well as the glittery weeping willow horsetail effect. Now, of course, you could change how you want these to activate. This could be on a key press. This could be when you click on an object within the world. But in this case, I'm super lazy, so I simply set it to repeat every 1 second. But there does seem to be one thing missing here: sound. Okay, so after some quick improvisation in Audacity, I've added some basic sound effects. Be sure to check out the description below for access to these files. You can add a sound effect by going to your upward spiral shot under the area where the object is created. Scroll to the bottom. You're going to add an action, play a sound, and you're going to add an audio file. In this case, it's from my device, a whiz sound. In this case, I set the volume to 5. I set the pitch to a random float in range, 0.7 to 1.2. This means you can use one single sound effect, but get different results. Then scroll down under Peony, under where the object is created, play a sound, select the sound file. In this case, it's the balloon pop. I set the volume to 15, and again, I put the pitch in a random float and range from 0.8 to 1.2. Now this one, I'm simply going to copy, Control C, go down to the 2 peonies, and copy and paste it below. Same thing with the triple stack. For the triple stack, you still only want it to play 1 time, so I'm just going to place it under the very first object creation. Now, for the weeping willow effect, we're going to use a crackling sound. So similarly, play a sound. In this case, it's going to be a crackle effect. I set the volume to 30, and again with the random float and range pitch. Now, be sure to put this up at the top. You don't want the sound to repeat 16 times. It only needs to play once. Here's what this looks like. Thanks for watching this tutorial walkthrough of how to create fireworks in GDevelop5. And don't forget, you can use effects like this for more than just fireworks. This could be magic effects, artillery, or just about anything you can think of. For more content like this, like and subscribe, and thanks for your time.